Chris Eubank Jr. has been exploding with anger since being fined, and he recently lost patience, telling Ring News that the fine has completely screwed him over. With the boxing world buzzing over the upcoming fight, many experts have shared their thoughts on how the matchup could unfold. According to Johnny Nelson, this fight is about more than just skill, it's about attitude. Johnny expressed that while he was once a huge fan of Benn, his admiration for Chris Eubank Jr. comes from the fighter's fearless mentality. He believes Eubank Jr. carries the same attitude as his father, willing to step into the ring against anyone. Nelson further noted that arguments exist for both fighters' victory, making it a highly anticipated showdown. However, in his view, the fight will be an emotional battle rather than a tactical one, and he expects the first 6 rounds to be an all-out brawl.
But these two here, I like them both. I was a massive fan of Connor's until his career, he stumbled. Chris, I like Chris because you know what? Chris doesn't care. Chris is like, I'm just going to be me, just like his old man. And for these two to get in the ring, I think there are so many arguments why one would beat the other, but I think it's going to be an absolute sellout. And one of those fights that you could put anywhere and you'd hear the rumblings left, right and centre. Public think now it's all fake to sell a fight. This is real. And that's why sometimes the insults they dig in, it gets personal. It goes beyond these two guys fighting each other. They're talking about their families, they're talking about personal issues, and that's when you know, oh, there's no coming back from that. So to see how this fight plays out, I think it'll be more emotion than tactics when it comes to the fight, and that's why I'd be surprised if the first 6 rounds are not an absolute rumble.
Similarly, Matt Macklin has weighed in on the fight, questioning how much Eubank Jr. has left in him. He believes that while Eubank Jr. is the favorite, there are still many unanswered questions regarding both fighters. Macklin recalled a conversation with Nigel Benn at the press conference, where Benn's unwavering belief in his son almost swayed him. He noted that such confidence can be infectious, especially when someone is entirely convinced of their victory.
We don't really know the answers to these, so I think you've got to say Eubank Jr. is a pretty strong favourite. But I was speaking to Nigel Benn at the press conference at Tottenham Hotspur, and I thought I better not sit around him too long because his confidence, he was that confident that he almost swayed me. You know, it's very infectious when you've got someone totally believing in themselves or their son, who cannot see any other way but them winning. You know, it can be, like I say, contagious, infectious, whatever. So I think, look, cold light of day, I think you've got to say Eubank Jr. is the favourite.
Moving on, Johnny Nelson also highlighted the key differences between the two fighters. He explained that both men possess massive egos and an unshakable sense of self-belief. According to him, their last names carry weight, and they are determined to uphold their family legacies. Nelson recalled an instance when Connor C. Benn claimed to have spoken with Eubank Jr. about fighting, but Eubank Jr. immediately denied it, refusing to engage in what he perceived as mind games. Nelson emphasized that the mental battle had already begun long before the fighters stepped into the ring.
They have a massive ego, and they both have unbelievable self-belief, and they both have a family name to protect and stand over. And now these things might not mean anything to the most people out, but you know when these two are there, okay, when they first should have boxed, and Connor said, you know what, I spoke to Chris and said to Chris, we'll get it sorted out. You still wasn't like when Chris was interviewed, he said, oh, we did. We've never spoken. I'm not playing your game. I'm not dancing your...
As the fight approaches, tensions remain high between Eubank Jr. and Benn. They are now just a month away from settling their rivalry on April 26th, with a sold-out crowd expected at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London. The original fight was scheduled for 2022, but was cancelled at the last moment due to an adverse finding in Benn's pre-fight drug test. That controversy resurfaced during a recent press conference when Eubank Jr. taunted Benn over the past issue. In a heated moment, Eubank Jr. slapped Benn with an egg, triggering chaos that saw Eddie Hearn and Nigel Benn get involved. The stunt reignited debates over their previous dispute, further fueling the intensity of their upcoming fight.
April 26th, it's Benn versus Eubank. The limit 160 pounds. The family feud goes on.
Tempers flaring there.
I got that one wrong, didn't I?
This slap incident also led to an unexpected challenge from Eddie Hearn. At the same press, Hearn proposed a £1 million bet to Ben Shalom, sparking heated discussions. A resurfaced video showed Hearn confidently suggesting that they placed the wager in escrow, insisting it would prove their belief in their respective fighters. His challenge quickly became a talking point, dominating headlines.
Oh, cool. We're going to have a bigger bet. We're going to have £1 million.
You want to do £1 million on Conor Benn?
In escrow.
Listen,
tomorrow morning.
He has
I'm telling you now, £1 million in escrow tomorrow morning.
On what?
On what? On the fight.
You're going to bet £1 million on
in escrow
Conor Benn
tomorrow morning.
Despite Shalom rejecting the offer, Eubank Jr. took the challenge seriously. He responded by publicly accepting the bet and directly calling out Hearn. According to Eubank Jr., if Hearn was truly confident, he should back his words with action. He insisted that the money should come from Hearn's personal funds and be held in escrow to ensure fairness.
Eddie. Come on, Eddie. £1 million, eh? Okay. Let's find out if you're a man of your word or just a lying hype job. I formally accept your £1 million bet. And the £1 million will be our own personal money. Not company money or purse money, just a straight up bet between me and you. The money will go into escrow and the winner takes all. And now I look forward to watching you try and weasel your way out of this bet like the rodent I know you are. Good day.
Eubank Jr. later doubled down on his stance, posting on X, "I accept your £1 million bet on my fight against Conor Benn on April 26th. Put your money where your mouth is." Meanwhile, Conor Benn quickly joined the online exchange, taking aim at Eubank Jr.'s financial status. He posted, "You need to pay your 7-figure debts to Neymar Jr.'s site before you worry about any other bets, you melt." This remark referenced ongoing rumors that Eubank Jr. had accumulated significant poker-related debts, allegedly involving football superstar Neymar. Moving on to the latest developments, the situation took a turn when Hearn backtracked on his bet. Speaking to IFL TV, he explained that his decision was based on regulations he couldn't ignore. He revealed that Ben Shalom had initially pointed out the British Boxing Board of Control's rules prohibiting promoters from betting. Hearn claimed he later received an email from the board reiterating the restriction, making it impossible for him to proceed.
Well, unfortunately, anyone smart enough knows what he's up to. And as I gave an interview today in the Ring magazine, when I stuck it on Shalom for the bet, which, you know, I'm not saying wasn't, you know, a real offer, but he quickly decided to quote the regulations of the British Boxing Board of Control to say, we can't bet, we're not allowed to bet. And actually, I can't be bothered to get it on my phone, but we all received an email from the board recently stating regulation 30, which is that any member, i.e. license holder, cannot bet, advise anyone else to bet, permit to bet on any event they have any involvement with. So this lot, for clicks and views and clout, decide to put out a video where they know I can't accept it.
Further clarifying the matter, Hearn stated that his bet was never directed at Chris Eubank Jr., but at Ben Shalom. He argued that Eubank Jr. was well aware of the betting regulations and accused him of using the situation for publicity. According to Hearn, accepting the bet would have resulted in a significant fine, and he believed his rivals were attempting to provoke such a penalty. He made it clear that he would never personally place a bet with Eubank Jr.
And, you know, and by the way, the bet wasn't even with Chris Eubank Jr., the bet was with Benjamin Shalom. But Eubank knows I can't bet, that's why it's putting up. And I would never have a bet with Chris Eubank Jr. Ever. Because there's a reason for that. And I only bet with certain people. Unfortunately, I will lose my license, and that's probably what they want me to do, is to comment on it and say, yeah, I'll take the bet, yeah. And then I get called before the license, and I get done for 100 grand. So I'm not falling into their tricks. It was a fantastic bit of clout, and it got him some views.
Speaking to Ring magazine, Hearn reinforced his stance by reading an email from the British Boxing Board of Control. The email explicitly prohibited any licensed member from placing or encouraging bets on a fight they were involved in. Hearn accused Eubank Jr. of exploiting the situation to generate controversy. He also referenced Eubank Jr.'s previous fine for the egg incident, suggesting that he was deliberately creating distractions.
I think it's easy to trick the public. I mean, just to kind of make sure the public are aware that
following our little laugh and a joke with Ben Shalom about the £1 million, Ben Shalom stated that, I mean, it's a good way to get out of the bet, but it was true that promoters can't bet.
Okay.
So much so that the British Boxing Board of Control recently actually sent an email, which I'll show you now. So I'll read it out because I just want to put Eubank to bed because he's one for the views. Do you know what I mean? Not directly or indirectly bet or permit, direct, allow or enable any person for the member's benefit or gain to bet on the result, progress, conduct of any other outcome of the connection therewith of a contest in which the member is participating or proposing to participate in any capacity of which the member has any influence, direct or indirect. And that is the reason that Chris Eubank done a video yesterday to try and get some views and some noise, because he knows I can't bet on the fight, and he knows that if I did, I would receive a fine, like him, of 100,000.
However, Eubank Jr. was quick to respond, mocking Hearn for backing out. In a post on X, he shared screenshots of Hearn's contradictory statements and wrote, "Big Boss promoter Eddie the Weasel, Hearn won't be honoring his £1 million bet because he received an email." He sarcastically compared Hearn's explanation to Benn's past drug test controversy, claiming it was an even weaker excuse. Adding to the backlash, Simon Jordan also criticized Hearn during a segment on TalkSport's boxing show. He argued that Hearn had originally proposed the bet to put pressure on Ben Shalom, but was now trying to backpedal. Jordan questioned how a veteran promoter like Hearn could have overlooked such an important regulation. In his view, Hearn's claim of being set up was merely an excuse to avoid taking responsibility.
Can I throw my 2 pence worth? For the solution here should be they're not allowed to bet.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Why don't they then do it, change the word and do it for charity, a charity of your choice?
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. A donation, right?
Not
okay,
a donation.
right.
Yeah.
Why don't they choose their own charities who they would like that £1 million to go? That's the way.
I think Eubank would go for that. I'm not sure.
Jordan further challenged Hearn to follow through with his bet. He pointed out that Eubank Jr. had taken the challenge seriously and called out Hearn publicly. According to Jordan, Hearn had initially targeted Ben Shalom, expecting him to reject the wager. However, once Eubank Jr. accepted the challenge, Hearn appeared reluctant. Jordan even compared the situation to Tyson Fury's past bet controversy, emphasizing that Hearn should not be allowed to back out without consequence.
Hearn tried to throw at Ben Shalom and put a £1 million bet.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so he's obviously said he put it on Ben Shalom, didn't he? Knowing that Ben would sort of like brick himself and not take the bet at that time. Eubank's picked up on that. Go onto his Instagram, have a look at what he's done there, and he said, "Listen, I want the bet. So let's see where your balls are now. I'll take the bet." Chris is a gambler.
We
He
need
will
to
do
campaign on this because Tyson Fury got out of paying his £1 million bet to Piers Morgan. Let's make sure that Mr. Hearn, doesn't get away with not placing his bet with
Meanwhile, Ben Shalom also had a fiery response for Hearn. He pointed out that despite Hearn's claims, such agreements had been made in past fights. Shalom argued that it was perfectly legal for each camp to offer financial incentives for victory. He stated that regardless of whether they called it a bet or a bonus, both sides should honor the terms laid out in the initial challenge. According to Shalom, Hearn was now using the rulebook as an excuse to avoid paying up.
So we want to do, the other one camp will pay the other camp $1 million if it loses, and the other camp should pay the other camp $1 million if it loses. We're on, I'm on, there's a way to do it. I know he's going on about all these rules now that I was sort of reminding him of at the time, but it's perfectly legal, you're perfectly entitled to have a bonus for each camp based on winning and losing. You know, that's been done in fights before.
Moving on, Chris Eubank Jr.'s antics continue to dominate the pre-fight narrative, adding more intensity to an already explosive build-up. The infamous egg slap remains a hot topic, with fans and analysts still debating its impact. Carl Frock weighed in on Chris Eubank Jr.'s mind games, highlighting how the egg slap incident had intensified the rivalry. According to him, Eubank Jr. had mastered the art of building hype, keeping the audience engaged with his antics. While he acknowledged Conor Benn's ability to draw attention, Frock believed that Ben sometimes made costly mistakes, referencing his controversial appearance on Piers Morgan Uncensored. Ben Shalom also chimed in, noting that handling Eubank Jr.'s relentless pressure wasn't easy, especially considering the way he had publicly embarrassed Eddie Hearn.
The way in which he builds stuff and the way he is, his attitude, he gets people watching him. And Conor Benn equally as well. He doesn't do himself any favours sometimes. Like on the Piers Morgan show, there's a few things I was a bit like, fucking hell, keep your mouth shut there, don't.
But imagine going up. I mean, you've seen what Chris did to Eddie. Not easy. It's not easy. And the reality is, I personally, I think Chris has got a lot more left than people realize. I think he's going to do a lot over the next.
However, Eubank Jr.'s antics came at a cost. Following the infamous egg slap, the British Boxing Board of Control, BBOFC, hit him with a staggering £100,000 fine for misconduct. In their official statement, they declared, following a hearing before the stewards of the British Boxing Board of Control, Chris Eubank Jr. was found to be in breach of Regulation 25, misconduct, for his conduct at the press conference in Manchester for the Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn contest on the 26th of April 2025. As such, the stewards of the board fined Chris Eubank Jr. the sum of £100,000. This penalty immediately became a hot topic, with many questioning whether the punishment was too severe. Reacting to the fine, Eubank Jr. recently admitted that he was left completely baffled. Speaking to The Ring, he said, "It's definitely an unusually high number." He then added, "There have been guys who have done way worse than what I did and been fined a lot less. So confusion was what I felt when I saw that number." His frustration was evident as he believed the punishment didn't fit the action. Many within the boxing community agreed, arguing that fighters have engaged in worse behavior with far lighter consequences. The hefty fine only added another layer of drama to this already explosive rivalry. Despite the financial setback, Eubank Jr. showed no remorse. In fact, he doubled down on his actions, later posting on Instagram that the fine was worth every penny. He elaborated further, writing, "What I did wasn't just a slap with an egg, it was a statement, a symbol. It was letting the entire community and world know that if you cheat, you're going to get exposed." He continued by justifying his actions, saying, "That type of message that was sent out to the kids, and that message was priceless." His words made it clear, this wasn't just about a slap, it was about making a point. Even in later interviews, Eubank Jr. remained unapologetic. He insisted that Benn had brought this on himself, given his history with failed drug tests and the infamous contaminated eggs excuse. According to him, the slap was an ironic response to the absurdity of Benn's justification, making it the perfect way to expose what he saw as hypocrisy. Eubank Jr. was firm in his stance. He had no regrets, and if given the chance, he would do it again.
Me throwing an egg at somebody who absurdly claims that that is the reason why you failed 2 drugs tests because of contaminated eggs, I think that's light, and I think that's deserved. He deserved the embarrassment of what happened.
Whether intentional or not, the slap has worked in Eubank Jr.'s favor, keeping his name in the headlines. Adam Smith, a respected voice in boxing commentary, acknowledged that Eubank Jr. had already won the pre-fight buildup. His calculated moves, from the press conference antics to his verbal jabs, had successfully shifted the spotlight onto him. Smith also noted that the betting controversy with Eddie Hearn had only added to the excitement, making this fight even bigger than expected.
But the pre-fight build-up has been won decisively by Chris Eubank Jr. He's been brilliant the way he's controlled it, the premeditated egg smashing, the way he's dealt with Eddie Hearn, the riling of Conor Benn through the hands of Nigel Benn. And I think that the Benn camp have got to just watch their emotions, which they will. Tony Sims has got a massive job as Conor's trainer. But yeah, Chris just keeps going, doesn't he? Jibing every week. Now the bet with Eddie, and everything's just beautifully moving towards April the 26th at Tottenham Hotspur, a wonderful stadium for boxing. We had AJ Usyk there.
Reflecting on the incident, Johnny Nelson admitted that the egg slap had undoubtedly rattled Conor Benn. He believed that anyone in Benn's position would have been embarrassed, especially given the animosity between the two fighters. Nelson emphasized that this level of hostility meant security would have to be on high alert whenever they shared a space, as the situation could easily escalate further.
Well, I think anybody getting an egg cracked on the head, regardless of the embarrassment of it,
you make a good point. Yes.
They're going to be a little upset. And so, and the animosity between them both already, to do that, to humiliate him like that. That's why security will have to be there whenever these two are in a room together. In fact, in a building together, and so they understand this. This is what I'm saying. This is real. I know sometimes...
Nelson further explained that this fight wasn't just about boxing, it was deeply personal. He pointed out that their father's legendary rivalry only added fuel to the fire, making this a generational battle. To him, this wasn't just pre-fight theatrics. The hatred between Eubank Jr. and Benn was real. He compared it to witnessing a heated argument in public. People might not want to watch, but they can't look away. The emotions, the insults, and the mind games were all raw, proving that there was no chance of these two being friendly once the fight was over.
It's probably big because in a bad way, because I'm old enough to remember their fathers fighting each other, which is really bad. But either way, the apple doesn't fall very far from the tree. And the way this has gone so far, the build up, the animosity between both fighters, it's playing out real play. This isn't faked. It's not pretend. It's not like these guys are going to be best of mates once this fight is done. Again, I suppose it's like seeing a couple arguing in the car park, and you don't want to look, but you're looking. This is real. This is a real argument. It's a real fight.
Beyond the drama, the financial stakes are staggering. According to FTTV Boxing, the report states that Eubank Jr. is set to earn £10 million, making him the highest paid fighter in this bout. Benn, on the other hand, will receive £8 million, which is still a massive heyday for the highly anticipated clash. The leaked figures have sparked widespread discussion among fans and analysts. Many believe that such lucrative purses highlight the magnitude of this fight in the boxing world.
Anyway, moving on. The fight purses revealed for Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. have been leaked, and according to them, Chris Eubank Jr. is set to earn 10 million and Conor Benn is set to earn 8 million. That's a lot of money, and they could thank both their fathers for that.
A lot of the money and hype surrounding this bout can be credited to the legacy of both fighters' fathers. The Eubank versus Benn rivalry isn't just about these two men, it's a continuation of one of boxing's most iconic feuds. But beyond the history, Eubank Jr. has also played his part in building this fight into a spectacle. From his mind games with Benn to his back and forth with Hearn, he has ensured that all eyes are on him. With a fight just weeks away, the psychological battle is still raging, and Eubank Jr. appears to have the upper hand. With all the drama surrounding this fight, the slap, the fines, the mind games, who do you think has the mental edge? Has Eubank Jr. won the psychological war before the first bell even rings? Or will Benn have the last laugh when they step into the ring? Share your thoughts in the comments.